Welcome to the first top 5 meta report for after Across the Timeways, guys. Today we're gonna look at how the meta is shaping up in the first 48 hours of the new expansion, so you guys have a better idea of what you should be playing with, as well as what you're playing against. I really hope you find the video helpful, and if you do, a like and subscribe would be awesome. And you can be sure I'm gonna keep on giving you top quality Hearthstone deck guides, as well as weekly meta reports. And you can also check me out live on stream each Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now, let's get into the video.
You are not prepared!
Again, for the meta report, we are going to be using the trusted stats from HS Replay Premium, which is definitely one of the most worth things you could be paying for Hearthstone, and I'm not saying that because I'm kinda sponsored by them, but I have always been using them when it comes down to meta reports, and their stats are always great. Anyway, the first deck on the list is gonna be Ferak Rogue, which is kinda interesting, not gonna lie. I was not expecting to see Garona being a part of one of the best decks today, but indeed, apparently she does work pretty well in this archetype. And the other new card we also have in here would be a couple of Deja Vus. Both of these cards I actually revealed, so that's actually kinda cool. And the thing about Garona is she's not even supposed to get triggered too much, like it's a nice little bonus, but the real bonus is you keep on shuffling King Lane back into the opponent's deck, or at least you force them to, and that is definitely not something the opponent would like to be doing, so it's a lot of anti-tempo for them. Obviously, if they keep this guy in their hand, they run the risk of you playing Garona and slashing them in half, which could be a good amount of damage, but if they do play it, that is literally a free mana draw a single card and shuffle this guy back into your deck, potentially top decking him again the turn after. I think this is the real power of this card and not so much actually slashing, but when the slashing happens, that's also a pretty nice bonus. You also get the Kingslayers from that, which is definitely not the worst thing in the world to have. A Fiery War Axe for Rogue, they can definitely use it, because the metal detector is 1 mana more. Of course, the coins are a lot more important than just the damage and the mana price, but still. And with Deja Vu, you can definitely do some pretty interesting things as well, including seeing if they have King Lane or not, so that can also be pretty nice. The thing about the Kingslayers is this draws a legendary minion both for you and for the opponent, so against some matchups it's not going to be very fun using it against the opponent. For instance, against the Rafaam Warlock, God knows you don't want to be giving them more Rafaams, but against some other not so legendary heavy decks, you can definitely abuse this. The rest of the deck is standard Ferak Rogue, so you definitely could check out some of my old guides about this if you want to see how the deck looks in action, but now let's see if we actually have some matchup stats. Not too much here, but you're gonna be good against Dummy Warrior at least. By the way, all the decks I'm picking in this top 5 have at least 500 games and include at least 1 new card. So yes, Quest Warlock still probably is one of the best decks you could be playing, but we're not gonna talk in detail about it today. Anyway, for the mulligan going first, you're always gonna be happy getting the Creature of Madness, the Space Rock Collector, Metal Detector is great, Deja Vu apparently is also not bad, which is interesting. But yeah, it's still something to do on turn 1, and you're probably gonna discover something playable for your next few turns as well, because the opponent also tried to mulligan for their good stuff. Holding on to the Kingslayer sounds a little bit on the wonky side, but these are the stats. At least the Navigator can be a great thing to curve into, Scoundrel as well if you have the curve for it. And of course the Metal Detector is pretty nice, I don't know if I said it already. And you could also consider Xavius if you don't have anything else big. On the coin, again, try to be curving off with your good cheap stuff, and you could also keep one of the more expensive cards like Xavius, Elise, or Sandbox Scoundrel. Prep could be an interesting keep here and there, but don't just keep it without anything else and without an actual plan. For other good rogues right now, we really don't have anything else to talk about apparently. A lot of people told me Deos Rogue was pretty strong, apparently that was a lie. But yeah, here's the stats for Ferak Rogue right now, actually pretty cracking. On the number 2 spot, of course, we're also gonna talk about Leech Death Knight with the new inclusion of Husk, and yes, this deck is obviously still very, very strong, and even stronger now with the Husk Death Rattle. It literally could deny things like Rafaam Warlock the win and bring you back to 20 life. Pretty insane card, not gonna lie. The other new card in here would be Welpity Infinite, which I would say are not super important, but still decent. It's basically a couple of corpses on a stick with poisonous, so not the worst thing in the world for sure, but you could actually swap these out for a second corpse explosion, that kind of stuff. I'd say would also work pretty lovely. You can definitely check out my guide about this deck from yesterday. I do go into detail there a little bit more, and I also show you some of the same games we had with it, so yeah, give it a check and see for yourself how the deck looks in action. But yeah, the rest of the deck is just Leech Death Knight, guys, like nothing too special about this one, so no need to waste too much time about it. Matchup wise, we don't have too much stats just yet, so let's move down to the mulligan, where you're still gonna be looking for a decent curve. The deck is pretty greedy, least, so try to be holding on to anything cheap that sounds playable for you, and you should be decent. Like, the hard part about this deck is curve off in the first few turns. After that, it goes a lot smoother, so try to get your 1-2 freeze, and that usually helps a lot. Same can be said when going second, and you could also keep one of the more expensive cards like Elise, like Xavius, like Sanguine Infestation. Heck, even Exarch Maladar could make some sense in certain cases, but you definitely would rather have a curve for it. And on the number 3 spot, we also have Bwonsamdi Death Knight, which is also just as strong apparently. And this is again a deck I showed you literally in the first hour of the new expansion, because I knew it would have been just so good. I think this is pretty much card for card the deck I showed you too, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, there we are. We literally played with this deck in the first hour of new expansion right after it came, and the deck really was really good, guys. This one also is not super different from what we're used to seeing, but still, with the Fabled card, that's 3 new cards you have in this one straight out, and we also have a couple of more Whelp of Infinite in here, because those still make some good amount of sense, but the rest of the deck is basically Death Rattle Death Knight, which was a pretty good deck before, and now it's even better because Bwonsamdi even gives you a little bit more healing. Again, definitely check out my guide about this deck plus gameplay if you want to see how it rocks, but it definitely rocked. For the matchups, we actually have a few here. We can see Leech Death Knight is not going to be too good for you, and neither would Control Priest if you manage to find one. Dummy Warrior slightly on the negative, but all around it's either 50-50 or far from it in your favor, so again, climbing shouldn't be an issue. When it comes down to the mulligan, going first, again, try to be curving off nicely. Things like Morbid Swarm for extra corpses, Creature of Madness for a good free drop, Ancient Rapture for extra corpses, Infested Breath can be nice, Troubled Mechanic can help you draw out your Exarch Maladar nice and quick. If you're curving into Elise, that'd be amazing, same with Sanguine Infestation, same with the Lungi, and heck, even Xavius. But definitely try to be curving into one of those and don't keep more than 1 4-drop, in most cases at least. Holding on to Cultist could be interesting, but it is a little bit too greedy, guys, especially when you're going first. That's gonna be in 8 turns, so probably not the best idea. As for on the coin, here you could actually hold on to High Cultist a little bit more frequently. Heck, you could even hold on to Exarch Maladar here for a potential turn 5 or 6 if you have the corpses, and a lot of the times if you set it up properly, you honestly should. A potential low roll you could have with High Cultist is actually to pull both Wakener of Souls before you've actually killed another Death Rattle minion. That would be pretty dumb, so be careful. Odds are slim, but never zero. For other good Death Knight decks, here's what the situation shows. This is the Leech Death Knight. This is actually not the Leech Death Knight I showed you. This is the one without any of the new cards, which is a little bit suspicious if you ask me. I'm not exactly sure if these stats are absolutely accurate here, but the one with Husk is here, and the stats are kind of similar, so I'd definitely go with this one, even though this one has a lot more win rate. I don't know, maybe people were just farming people trying new stuff in the first few hours before this deck emerged, which honestly should have emerged instantly, but still. Here's the Bwonsamdi Death Knight as well. The stats here are a lot less impressive, honestly. 56.6 is mid-tier 2 territory, which is not bad, but not top tier still. But for now, for decks with decent sample size and solid win rate, this is what we have. On the number 4 spot, we have an interesting looking new Aggro Demon Hunter that emerged, and it is actually using quite a few new cards, and I definitely wasn't expecting to see a Perennial Serpent on a deck with this good a win rate today, but here we are. This cool new card actually does drop quite fast and consistently thanks to all the dormant minions you have, with things like Slumbering Sprite, with things like Grim Harvest, and heck, even with things like Red Card, so you don't even have to have your own dormant minion. Heck, the opponent might even play one for you, so Perennial Serpent can literally be dropping as soon as turn freaking 3 with the coin, which is kinda insane. Gone are the days with turn 4 7/7s, now we have a turn 3 7/9s with Rush. It does take a little bit of setup, but not that much. Other than that, we have a lot of good aggro stuff in here with Battle Fiends, with Slumbering Sprite, with Sock Puppet. The new Time Lost Glaive is also in here, giving you a random demon from the past, which could be interesting. We also have Customs Enforcers in here. I'm not sure exactly what we're targeting here. I guess it's still gonna be decent against things like Questlock and such. Single copy of Hot Calls is kind of a hot take here. A lot of the times this card actually does make a huge impact on any board-centric matchup opponent. Like, this is the whole reason why this deck is so good against any other aggro decks like Aggro Pallies and Murloc Pallies and such, but maybe it's not that heavy in the meta right now. We also have the Broken Ziliax with Haywire plus Power Module, so you can actually tempo it out as soon as turn 3 or 4 and win the game on the spot if the opponent can't handle it. So yeah, all around a pretty nice, aggressive, quick deck. No matchup still, but for the mulligan, here's what we have. Going first, you're gonna be looking for the good curve with the 1-2-3s. Ziliax could be amazing if you curve into it. The Serpent could be amazing if you already have a dormant thing like Grim Harvest already. Just make sure to play this on turn 3 at least, least you still could low roll with the 1-turn Dormant Idiot, but odds are in your favor. 66% of the time you are going to be rolling on the 2 or the 3-turn Dormant Idiots, so that should cover you for the Serpent, but yeah, mulligan accordingly. On the coin, again, plenty of the same stuff, and here I'd say Ziliax is even more important, especially if you have a decent curve for it, and same can be said for the Serpent. This is the deck I showed you for Demon Hunter. Apparently the one without anything new is also doing just as good, even slightly better, with slightly less sample size however. We have another variant of this, again with the Serpents. This one also has the Devious Coyote, which makes sense. Space Demon Hunter apparently is also doing okay-ish, but I don't think there's anything new in this one, is there? So yeah, all around that's it for Demon Hunter so far. No Brock Cigar nonsense just yet. And the last deck on the list is actually going to be Shred Warlock. And yes, apparently this is performing better than Rafam, and it seems like a lot of things are performing better than Rafam. Like, Rafam Warlock felt amazing on day one. I don't know, like the stats are not supporting that claim anymore, but on day one the deck was curving insanely well for me, both with and against it. But apparently Shred Warlock right now is doing quite well, and this thing is very aggressive, doesn't have too much healing, so you gotta be careful with that, but it does look like it's pretty powerful, and it's going back to the Warlock Zoo Warlock roots more like it, with very wide boards, which you could buff with things like Entropic Continuity. You also have good amount of card draw with things like Platosaur, with Solarium, with Curse Catacombs. The entire Shreds package is also in here, with, again, the buff, the Tachyon Barrage, which basically allows you to literally drop 2 Devious Coyotes as soon as literally turn 1 on the coin, guys. You can see my Rafam Warlock game where we actually won against somebody who did that to us. Double 5 freeze with Stealth plus 6 damage to the face on turn 1, and we still somehow won. That was kinda insane, not gonna lie. The Twilight Time Hopper, the Fate Breaker, which also gives you a good amount of healing, and the Ruinous Velocity Drake, which gives you a lot of tempo. Both the Velocity Drake and the Fate Breaker are gonna be slapping you for free damage if you have a Shred of Time in your deck, but the payoff is usually well worth it. Just don't expect this guy to also lifesteal for you when that happens. It does not happen. So yeah, all around it's a nice aggressive board-centric deck, which is gonna require a little bit of Shreds management. First you gotta shuffle, then you gotta draw them, that kind of stuff, so it is fun, it is feeling fresh, might want to give it a check. Not enough games for matchups just yet, so let's see the mulligans, and going first, you are gonna try to curve out as good as you can with some of your good 1-drops, with the Twilight Time Hopper on 2 would be insane, Maze Guide's okay, Fiendish Servant also not bad, Tachyon Barrage, especially if you have a Devious Coyote or 2 in hand, would be insane, but all around basically try to get a decent 1-2-3 curve. On the coin, again, plenty of the same stuff. I'd say here the Tachyon Barrage is even more important because odds of you finding a Devious Coyote for turn 1 or 2 are even higher. As you can see, we have plenty of different small sample size decks at the top of the list, and plenty of them are basically all sorts of iterations of Quest Warlock with 0 new cards. Shocking, I know. Egg Warlock is also looking pretty promising still, with small sample sizes and no new cards if I'm not mistaken, but we're gonna have to scroll a little to see a Shreds Warlock here with 56% above 500 games. Definitely not bad. Here's another variation of it without the Ziliax, also looking pretty well, with a lot more sample size, a bit less win rate however, and we can scroll even further to see something different, and Rafam Warlock's under 50%, guys. I don't know, dudes, the deck actually felt busted on day one. Apparently not as busted though. The fact that it's a 40 deck definitely makes it a lot less consistent. Maybe people are just trying to win with Rafams or something like that. Maybe they insta-concede when somebody dirty rats them or something, but I can tell you the deck felt amazing on day one, dudes. I don't know. Kinda feels weird. There's also space variations of Rafam, which are definitely not as good. For Druids, I tried this Protoss Druid, and Kubu Gaming literally reached rank 1 legend with this thing, guys. It was actually insane. He went like 15-1, and I also went like 4 wins, 0 losses with this thing straight out. The deck actually felt amazing, but it's definitely not very easy to play. Like, it's very counterintuitive sometimes. It's very not traditional Hearthstone, so it might be a skill issue here. I'd still give it a few more days. Maybe people start learning how to play it and whatnot, but the deck actually felt pretty interesting, pretty new, pretty fresh. Dollhouse Druid, however, still as strong as ever, and it's not even using any of the new cards, which is kinda weird. I'm pretty sure you should slap in the new Fabled card in this and feel even better. With Hunter, we can see Beast Hunter doing okay, nothing new in it though. And for Neri Hunter, it's also looking okay. Small sample size, decent win rate. It is running the new Fabled cards and whatnot, so kinda cool. For the Mage part, Elemental Mage is actually farming a lot of the new unrefined decks with some easy elemental burn damage, but so far, Arcane Mage is looking absolutely dog water. Again, people have been telling me to try this deck because it felt so great. Not so great after all, huh? Aura Paladin is looking a lot better than I actually expected, but I also did not think of including things like Lionessa or Puppet Master Dorian in here, so that's kinda interesting, and this does look like a pretty interesting new fresh deck. It is running the new Gelban of Tomorrow, and plenty of interesting auras in here, but none of the really greedy auras it seems, like there's no 7 mana summon bullshit for the next 3 turns, and there's also none of the greedy stuff, like the 4 mana minion that increases the duration of your auras. This is a bit more aggressive, a bit more OTK, that kind of stuff, and it also has Gelban of Tomorrow for some late game apparently, plus Firak. Aggro Pally is also looking as strong as ever, nothing new in it however, so there's that. I really do believe you should be playing the new 2 mana Murloc Legendary so you can get more stuff back in your hand, but maybe people just don't have it yet for the most part. Murloc Pally is also up there, but nothing too crazy. Again, the new legendary card should feel good here. And there's even Lionessa Paladin with Gelban, and there's another version of Lionessa Paladin with Gelban which is not doing as good as its counterpart. For Priest, Protoss Priest seems to be at the top of the list for now, nothing new in here either. Zarimi Priest is something interesting you could be trying with Murazon, but that sounds a little bit on the greedy part. Bandage Priest is still up there, nothing new in it however. And scrolling down further, we can see that so far Medivh is not Medivhing much, with both Zarimi and Control Priest variations. Shaman actually surprised me, not gonna lie. I really thought that Muradin would be quite OP, but I did try 2 variants of Muradin Shaman on day 1 with more nature stuff, with more pirate stuff, and both felt okay, but nothing crazy, and the stats support that. Both felt like 53-ish% win rate indeed. So something like a bottom of tier 2 kind of deal. The deck feels a little bit too linear right now. The pirate version definitely felt a lot better for me, not this exact list. I'm probably gonna give you a video about it later today if you want to check it out. But yeah, the deck did not feel as busted as it should have. But I still would consider waiting a few more days before we make any grand conclusions about the class. Surely something cracked is gonna come out of it. And last but not least, we have several different warrior decks doing pretty well, but it seems like the old dummy warrior is the best for the class right now, and honestly I could have included it into the top 5, but the fact that it has 0 new cards in just doesn't feel great. Another version of dummy warrior with less than 500 games however does have Dios in it, or Dios. How the fuck do you even read this thing, man? Chronolord, that's how. And plenty of new stuff like Precursory Strike, like Unleash the Crocolisk, so there is that, and I've been hearing Quest Warrior is also doing pretty well with a bunch of the new cards, but so far, not that much stats yet. Here's another Chronolord variation with a lot less win rate, but yeah, all around interesting stuff. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope this meta report helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the first few days of the new expansion. I'm gonna give you an updated top 5 meta report in the weekend, so be on the lookout for that one. But until then, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.